On behalf of the board of the Whatcom Dispute Resolution Center, I'd like to extend our appreciation to each of you for joining us on this very special night. We're here to raise awareness of the peace-building work that amazing people and programs are doing in our community. As we celebrate our 26th year, I'm reminded of the importance of our vision for Whatcom County, to be a community in which people approach conflict in creative and healthy ways. This past year has marked some significant milestones in the center's history. More people than ever are turning to us for support, to build their skills and to assist them in resolving conflicts. In fact, so far this year alone, almost 3,000 people have taken our trainings. Over 900 people have participated in mediation and facilitation. And we've provided over 400 supervised visits for children who would otherwise not be able to see their non-custodial parent. So we have a full evening ahead of us, and I'm so pleased to introduce Moodwater, Executive Director of the WDRC. Please, Moodwater. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. And thanks, everyone, for joining us on this beautiful Friday evening here in November. I'm truly grateful that each one of you has taken time to join us tonight. The simple and profound acts of peace building within our community continue to shape the social fabric that connects and binds each one of us. And each year leading up to this particular event, I take extra time to reflect on the tone and tenor of communication and conflict, locally, nationally, globally. And each year, I'm reminded of the incredible community in which we live. The past few weeks and months of this year, I think in particular, though, have been difficult to process and sort through. From acts of violence here in Whatcom County, both random and within families, to seemingly unfathomable violence elsewhere that has become all too familiar. Each of us has responded in our own way, right? Whether we felt overwhelmed, inspired to act, or numb with shock at times. I'm comforted by the knowledge, though, that each of us is capable of responding in a helpful way, of taking small and large steps to adjust our course, to acknowledge the pain and grief of so many, and to remind ourselves of our shared humanity, and to help lift up one another. And I know that staying focused on our shared connection and on the health and well-being of that social fabric is what creates the opportunity in this community, here in Whatcom County and here tonight, to find creative resolutions, to manage conflict in productive ways, to work through disagreements without violence, and ultimately to strengthen not only our interpersonal relationships with one another, but our entire community as a whole. And we're doing it. Tonight is an opportunity to celebrate community members that are building peace in ways that are so beautifully congruent with the mission of the Dispute Resolution Center. And as Catherine shared, it's also an opportunity to support the DRC and stand with us in service to the community. So I truly and deeply thank each one of you for taking precious time tonight to join with us in this endeavor this evening. The Peace Builder Awards has become one of the most visible ways that we can acknowledge the efforts of individuals, organizations, and businesses that are contributing to a more peaceful community. And it is these award recipients that remind us of how accessible the act of peace building really is, and how integrated it can become into our daily lives and actions. Each year, for those of you who have come before, you might recognize that this event has grown significantly. And in tandem, the selection process has become more and more difficult. And once again, we received a record number of incredible nominations this year, making this both a challenging and inspiring decision-making process. Our board of directors grappled with determining who we would recognize and which peace builders most closely and most creatively embodied our vision, mission, and values. And we are so pleased to be able to recognize outstanding individuals and programs in 8 categories this evening. I also want to acknowledge that we are celebrating the 6th annual Youth Poetry Contest. Open to students in grades K through 12, we invited young people to submit poems about peace or other aspects of conflict resolution, and we're so pleased with the incredible submissions this year. 4 students of varying grade levels and ages were selected, and we'll get to hear their poems throughout the evening. And now for our Peace Builder Awards. Are you ready? Okay. So our very first award this evening is being awarded to Jared Jones Valentine and the Unity Coal Mine Bridge Project.
I own the barber shack. Went to high school here in Bellingham and Whatcom Middle School. I worked for HUD, Seattle Housing Authority, for a lot of years as a case manager. And once my kids were grown, I knew that I wanted to come back up here to be around my mother. She's older. And so I did, eager to do something. I had opened a little barber shop and wanted to build a business. One of our clients is April, and she sits on the Bellingham City Council. And she had shown up here one day out of the blue, and I was cutting hair, and she goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you." So I was done with the client, and I walked over and I sat with her, and she goes, "You know, I talked to the mayor and the city council," and she goes, "We'd like to have a rainbow in the neighborhood somewhere." And she goes, "And I was thinking that bridge," she goes, "the bridge right across the street from us is the coal mine bridge." And I said, "Oh, that'd be a great idea." And she said, "Yeah." She goes, "So why don't you head that up?" And I thought, "Oh my God." And so from that day forward, I just put it out with all my friends on social media and requested 14 teams of 7 or more on each team to paint the bridge. And so we kept meeting like once a month with these team captains and doing field trips out to the bridge. And then we got everything coordinated with the team captains, and we needed sponsorships. So we reached out to the community, and I think we got over 25 local businesses to donate. We had we had a ton. I can't list them because I don't know them all, but a ton of restaurants downtown and local. I know Sherman-Williams, the Salvation Army played a big part. Up in Blaine, the Peace Arch Writers, they were a big part of it. They gathered their people and they helped prime it and scrape it, and so it just became a community event. I knew that I wanted more than just my friends to paint the bridge. You know, I wanted people to be friendly with each other and paint the bridge. So I tried to grab every walk of life that I knew. I grabbed the religious, I grabbed the non-religious, I grabbed every color you can think of, every walk of life. I had the homeless, I had everybody that I could snag out there painting that bridge. And it was a beautiful thing because they were all laughing and having a great time doing it, you know, and people would support us. They'd honk, they'd drop off water, they would drop off money as they drove by, they would be waving, and, you know, and it was just a wonderful experience. It just helped unite, is what it did. It's not a total biblical thing, it's not a total gay thing, it's a unity thing that brought a whole bunch of different walks of life together to come together and do a peaceful project, because it's all about getting along and seeing each other's point of view. Oh, wow, what an honor. This is beautiful. Thank you very much. It was a fun project and something I'll remember forever. Thank you very much. Thanks to my family.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you everyone who participated. It's a beautiful bridge to drive over. Makes me smile. So the second award this evening is our Education Award. And it's inspiring to see how impactful one person's contributions can be to the community at large. We are so pleased tonight to recognize Jill Iwasauki's efforts to strengthen the relationships, build trust, and listen deeply to the needs of youth and families within the Ferndale School District. If you'll join me, we'll watch a video to learn more about Jill's work.
So I have worked in Ferndale School District since 1989. Had a short trip away to Meridian across the highway for 5 years. I've been a teacher, an administrator. I started a small high school here. And the last 5 years I was the executive director of student services. It's kind of an amazing role, actually. I was in charge isn't the right word, but under my passion was our Native American programs, our Native student programs, our ELL student programs, our nursing and health, migrant students, foster care students, homeless students, students with special needs, students with 504s. So I got to work with a lot of kids with a lot of needs and a lot of families, and a great team to work with too. So for some of it, it was working with the Ferndale Community Coalition, which is an amazing group of service providers. Northwest Youth Services, we work with quite a bit, Catholic Community Services, Unity Care, Lummi Behavioral Health, Lummi Victims of Crime. It's quite an endless list of folks. I think one of the superintendent's, one of her favorite comments when we'd meet, because we met with these folks once a month, was she would count the number of community partners that sat at the table compared to the partners who were from our school district, and they always outnumbered us. Mm-hmm. And we were so excited by that, because that said there's all of these people helping us do the work we're trying to do. So I think the other piece that I'm honestly the most proud of is the work we've done with Lummi Nation. Ferndale has had, in the past, has had a relationship with the tribe that hasn't always been positive, and a lot of our families are still parents who may have actually lived through that not positive time, and their children are with us now. So being able to make some really good connections to organizations, to people, to elders, and to bring into Ferndale more Native support than we've ever had, that's something that I feel like that's an accomplishment for us over the last few years. We not only live in a world of culture and a nation of culture and a state, we live in a community full of culture, and our classrooms are full of kids of culture. And if we don't, and that's all of us, if we don't learn to listen and acknowledge and appreciate the amazing language and the traditions and the histories of our kids, of our community members, of our families, of our parents, we miss out so much. Just as human beings, we miss out. There is the right way to care about people and the right way to learn about people. So I think if there's one word we all need, it's listen. Learn to listen.
My understanding is that Jill has the flu and can't be here this evening, but Masa Delara, I believe you're going to come up and receive this award on her behalf.
I just quickly want to say that Jill is the most humble, intelligent, and kind person. And the work that she has done in Ferndale has been amazing. And if you saw her, like if she was here, she wouldn't want to say anything, because she's so humble. But she has made such a difference in Ferndale, and we are so grateful.
So we have the opportunity now to hear from one of our young poets. So would Lily Patterson please join me up on stage to read your poem entitled Pie?
Okay. Pie. At the end of August every year, the tips of my fingers grow red cold as I pluck pearls off a bush, each little sapphire heavily guarded with gold leaf. They have diamond branches, each lapis lazuli sphere precious to Pi. The synchronized plop of a berry, then a drop of liquid silver from the heavens. Drop, drop, each berry I pluck makes me richer, but then I spend it all for the pleasure of pie. Some find joy from licking all the frosting off their cupcake or eating only the pie filling, but I enjoy a crisp crust. I sit on the couch with no book to read or pencil to draw with, but I find peace with the scent of pie.
Her imagery was fantastic. I was transported, and now I'm salivating for pie. Thank you, Lily. Okay, our third Peace Builder Award. So sometimes peace can be found in music and the creative and collaborative endeavor that it requires. In this particular instance, the music both shed light upon and gave voice to powerful issues, creating a space for healing. I am so pleased tonight to share this year's Peace Builder Arts Award with Dustin Willits and the Colshan Chorus. So please join me as we learn more about their work.
Turn me around, ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching to freedom.
I've been conducting and working with the Colshan Chorus for about 6 years. When I found that they were looking for an artistic director, I was at the time looking to be challenged in new ways and to work with a broader group of people that were like-minded in thought about what art is supposed to be and what art could be. My goal as an artist is to create beauty and hopefully cause people to think. I start working on a project or a theme for a particular concert or season 2 to 3 years before it actually happens. And the thought for this Breaking Silence show started with a conversation with a friend.
There is no doubt.
And he was doing a lot of work over in Thailand in and around trying to stop the progression of sex trafficking in the country. And the one thing that he said to me that just stuck was, people don't realize how prevalent of a problem this is, not only in Thailand, but here. It's a Bellingham problem, and it's a Seattle problem, and it's all over the place. And we started talking more deeply about a project that was broader than just sex trafficking, but was about all of the injustices that are surrounded and catered towards the inequalities of women in our society. And I knew that this was something that was relevant. And I think it's every artist's desire to be relevant in their own community. It was extremely difficult repertoire. I mean, subject material aside, the caliber of music and the caliber of writing that it was far beyond what I believe most community choirs would strive to achieve in a 4-month period. That was probably the biggest challenge that I had with the chorus. At the same time, also what eventually became the biggest triumph with them. And to watch as it empowered so many, it could not have been done any better if we were to do it all over again. And it's all because of the collaboration. It's all because of people who helped dream it, everybody from the dancers to accompanists to our board president, to everybody who was willing to just get behind trying something. And I was beyond blessed to work with these women who were able to openly and vulnerably tell their story, and to find the repertoire and the music and the movement and dance and the images and lighting that Keith was able to create, to all get together and tell a story in hopes that the people who came to our show would walk away having learned something and inspired to do something.
Dustin, will you join me up here, please?
I want to say thank you to a lot of people, but I will keep it as short as possible. But as I said in the film, it was just pure collaboration. And Pam Kuntz is here. She's a choreograph artist. Could you stand, please? And I'm honored to accept this on behalf of the Colshan Chorus, and I'm just representing them. But all the people that were involved, at the core, the artists who could get behind something that would make a difference. And to all of you, and to Whatcom County, and to be a community where one artist can feel comfortable enough to try scary things.
Are there more members of the Colshan Chorus here? And if so, will you stand and we can acknowledge and recognize you? Thanks, everyone. So for our fourth award, sometimes the efforts of one person can have a tremendous and exponential impact on so many more. Over the past several years, Mickey Jackson's personal experience and passion have led to a community-wide cultural shift, inspiring us to engage in some of life's most difficult conversations. So please join me as we learn more about her efforts.
Well, I think that for me, the death of a loved one has been a powerful motivator, and I've been a caregiver to my mother, my father, my husband, and a sister, and one of my lifelong friends. And through those experiences, I realized that it's just critically important that people have their plans in place before any kind of a crisis mode. You know, this important information needs to be kind of woven into our social fabric. There's this common assumption that this sort of planning is for the gray hair and those who are already diagnosed with a serious or terminal illness, when in fact, these conversations and the planning should be for all adults 18 years and older, because you never know when accident or illness is going to occur. And you know, and the other thing is that when young people are transitioning from, you know, like high school to, you know, college or into a community college or, you know, work, whatever, sometimes they're away from home. They're away from people who know them. And if they were in an accident or came down with an illness and ended up in a crisis situation, who's going to speak for them? Who's going to know what they would want or not want? So many of us who are passionate about this feel like we have to start talking about it when kids are little, and then by the time they're 18, they'll be ready to make their own plans. If they don't have their plans in place, and they haven't had any conversation with their family or their friends or their professional care providers. People don't know what they want. And the survivors very often suffer from PTSD if they have to make the decision to withdraw life support. They could have prolonged, very difficult and complicated grief. There can be chaos in a family. It can actually tear families apart because sometimes like the mother, the father, the sister, or brother, they're in the ICU, and there have been no conversations. And the family gathers, and they get into conflict, and sometimes it descends into chaos. So there's a lot of things that can happen that many of us haven't given any thought to. And so we should look on these times as an opportunity to change that.
So our dear Mickey also has the flu tonight. But her dear friend Heather Flaherty is here, I believe, to accept the award on her behalf. Thank you so much, Heather.
Mickey is so sad she can't be here tonight. And as you saw from that film, she's just a phenomenal, tremendous person. And I'm really sad that she's missing this moment to be recognized. And she asked me if I would send her a picture. And I want to do her one better. So I want you all to indulge me, if you will. And on the count of 3, I'm going to film us all giving a toast to Mickey. And could you say, "Yay, Mickey," on the count of 3, okay? So I'm going to get it going. You're all in it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Oh, that makes me feel better. I wanted her to know that you're all here celebrating her. We have the opportunity now to hear from another young poet, Gianna Mendoza. Will you come join us and read your poem, Volcanoes?
We're volcanoes. We erupt and we explode, but we mean much more to the earth. If you look at us with peace in our heart, you see a beautiful hill covered with grass and flowers and much, much more. If you look at us with a cold and broken heart, you see a pile of ash to be thrown away. We stand there and think about how we see others. Thank you.
So we have the opportunity now to hear about our 5th award recipient, Skookum Kids. So when we see a need, recognize the barriers to meeting that need, and then make the systemic improvements to overcome those barriers, we affect positive change. And we are honored to present Skookum Kids and their executive director, Ray Deck, with the Peace Builder Organization Award for the powerful and transformative impact they've had on the lives of so many children in foster care and the loving families that are there to support them. So please join me in learning more about Skookum Kids.
The mission of Skookum Kids is to eliminate the pain points that make life unnecessarily difficult for foster parents and social workers. It is hard to be a foster parent. It is hard, and a social worker. It's hard to do both of those jobs. And it is hard in a bunch of ways that it will just always be hard. It's just always going to be difficult work. When kids come into foster care, there's a set of things that they are, frequently they're afraid will happen. You know, they're afraid foster parents are mean. They're afraid that foster care as an institution is scary. A lot of those fears are based on the lies that have been told to them by adults who are trying to manipulate them or scare them. And part of our honor is to correct some of those misperceptions, to, I guess, redefine for children what foster care is and recalibrate their expectation about what the next few months of their life is going to be like. The fundamental problem with foster care in our area and many other places is that it is too much work being done by too few people. We have a very well thought out system. That's not the reputation it gets, but it's a very well thought out system. The problem is it is under-resourced, and so the people involved in it are overtaxed. And what happens is the same thing that always happens when there's too much work done by too few people. Some of the work goes undone, or all of the work gets done poorly. And when we're talking about kids, either of those outcomes is unacceptable. So our solution is, let's take care of the people who have given their heart and soul to doing this work by doing what amateurs can. Let's do what we can do on the edges to make the life of those folks easier. We want to care for the caregivers so that they can be free to give themselves fully to the work that they love. Skookum operates 3 major programs. The first one, the one we're most known for, is called Skookum House. And at Skookum House, we take care of kids who are brand new to foster care. So kids who are coming from an unsafe situation somewhere in Western Washington come and stay with us, spend about a week with us. And we don't do anything like razzle-dazzle fancy with them, honestly. We just take great care of them. We get them to see a doctor, get them new clothes, books, toys, shoes, things that a lot of these kids have never had before, but many of our kids would take for granted. We just make sure they're safe and well cared for. Most importantly, we make sure they have the undivided attention of 2 safe, healthy adults at all times. And the impact this has system-wide is it buys enough time for their social worker to locate a foster home that matches the needs of the children well. So rather than in an emergency, the social worker looking for whoever's the first foster parent that will answer the phone, instead they've got a week to work to locate the right home that is uniquely equipped and eager to care for that particular child. So that's Skookum House. We also help families who want to become foster parents to navigate the licensing process, which that can be very scary and intimidating for a lot of families, and we do our best to make it painless. And then we have a whole suite of things we do called supporting programs, where we support and encourage families who are answering the call to care for kids in foster care. We say we want to make foster care feel like a small town, where for a child, everyone knows their name and everyone is safe.
Ray, can you join me up here?
Thank you. This is a high honor. I get entirely too much credit for the work that Skookum Kids does. There's an army of volunteers and donors and staff who make this possible. In fact, tonight, while I'm hanging out with all of you, there are 3 children who entered foster care a little earlier today, and they're hanging out with 2 volunteers who are kind of an institution at Skookum House. They together call themselves the Grandma Shift, and I'm sure those kids are being read lots of great stories as they fall asleep tonight at Skookum House. So thank you. This is a high honor.
Okay, so our next award is being given to Paige and the Northwest Youth Services Queer Youth Project. So, if one were to pose the question of how we could work together to address the isolation so many of our LGBTQ young people are experiencing today, the answer most certainly involves Paige and Northwest Youth Services Queer Youth Project. The program award that we're granting tonight is for their remarkable efforts to promote inclusivity, build awareness, and embrace youth, families, and allies thoughtfully and compassionately. Please join me as we learn more.
After college, I was working in finance, and it just seemed a little bit empty to me. I enjoyed the work intellectually, but there was something missing. And at the same time, I was part of this large church in Seattle. And people started coming to me and saying, hey, I need to talk to you about something. And people had a lot of questions about their faith and their sexual orientation or their gender identity. And without really meaning to, I became almost like a volunteer pastor there for folks who had questions. And those conversations just became the most meaningful thing in my life, sitting down and bearing witness to someone's story. And there wasn't much I had to say except, thank you for telling me, and being present to them really changed me. And so I started thinking about doing that as a vocation, and I ended up going to divinity school. And in divinity school, I focused on studying feminist and queer theologies. So really talking a lot about how do we recenter our conversations onto those people who've historically been marginalized and silenced, and how do we reprioritize our systems so that they actually get the privileges that we've been denying them for a long time. And in divinity school, I really thought that I'd move into congregational work, but and actually coming to Bellingham, I looked at a congregation here pretty seriously, but this job popped up at Northwest Youth Services to work with queer youth. And I thought, boy, that sounds really interesting, like the chance to work with young people who might be experiencing discrimination. And so my wife kept elbowing me about it, like, hey, have you applied to that job? Have you applied to that job? And I kind of hummed and hawed. I wasn't really sure. I was, to be honest, nervous about working with youth who are experiencing homelessness. But I applied, and a few months later, actually, I was offered the job, and I've completely fallen in love with it, and see, it really is the best expression of my calling that I can imagine. So Northwest Youth Services has been around 40 years or so, serving youth experiencing homelessness. And I think it was 8 to 10 years ago that they started to realize that a lot of the youth seeking services were LGBTQ identified. And they spent some time talking about that and looking at the research and figuring out who really was accessing services. And what we recognized based on like nationwide research and local numbers here is that at any given time, roughly 30 to 40% of the youth who are experiencing homelessness are queer identified. And so we started the Queer Youth Project to try to prevent that those youth from entering homelessness, because research and youth tell us that the #1 driver of youth homelessness for queer youth is lack of parent or guardian acceptance. A lot of youth don't have a family member that they can talk to or a neighbor. In fact, 83% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth in Whatcom County feel that they don't have an adult to turn to, and they feel alone in life. And so our programs are designed to support youth and to try to involve their families in supportive conversations around youth in the hopes that they don't become homeless. When I think about the Queer Youth Project and how we serve young people, my hope is that the queer youth of this county will feel less alone in life because of our work.
Paige, will you join me?
Well, I am profoundly humbled to be recognized tonight alongside so many other worthy recipients. And I want to thank you all. So many people in this room today are part of the community who supported me, who have supported the Queer Youth Project, and who every single day support the youth of our community. Thank you.
And we're going to hear the reading of The Puzzle of Peace. Would Moana Peterson please join me on stage?
Peace is a puzzle, a complicated puzzle, and we are the pieces. We each have a piece inside of us, a piece of peace. We need to join hands and start making our puzzle. Join hands with family and relatives, join hands with friends and neighbors. And maybe have an open hand. Open your hand to the plants who bring us life. Open your hand to animals who bring us hope. Open your hand to your ancestors who bring us determination. Open your hand to other people who bring us friendship. But the only way we can do that is peace. Peace is a puzzle, a complicated puzzle, and we are the pieces.
That was absolutely wonderful. So for our 7th Peace Builder Award of the evening, I'll say that so much of our shared history goes unnamed. And the lack of that acknowledgement can perpetuate trauma and injustice for communities of color in particular. So this particular award this year, the Reconciliation Award, is being granted in recognition of the important efforts made to both name our history and to symbolize our community's desire to be a welcoming place for all and to move forward together in a good way. So please join me as we learn more about Satpal Sidhu and the Arch of Healing and Reconciliation Project.
So when I came to Whatcom County, there were very few Sikh families, and we had no idea of the past history. In about mid-90s, we found out about that there were 350 plus Sikhs living in Bellingham 100 years ago, and they were kicked out. And that's all we knew. So we started doing some research with Bellingham Herald and archives and things, and found out more about it. And that was the beginning of this idea to learn more about it. And in 2006, because 2007 was going to be the 100-year anniversary of the Bellingham riots, that's how it is known, Bellingham riots of 1907, and we thought we must memorialize some way. And that's when I met Paul Engelsberg, and the Sikh community here wanted to do something. And we formed a committee and started throwing the ideas that how should we do that.
We got some inspiration from some other communities and events. For example, they were building a Chinese reconciliation garden in Tacoma because Tacoma had a really horrendous riot that led to several deaths and driving out something like 700 or 800 Chinese in the 1880s. Even the US president and the Congress had tried to reconcile what had happened during World War II with the internment of the Japanese. So we had inspiration from several sources in coming up with this idea of healing and reconciliation. I think it was really Satpal's idea that started out as a scribble on a napkin or something about an arch. Do you want to tell that story?
So the building arches has been a history of ages, thousands of years. In Indian culture, archway is considered a doorway. It's a concept that when you walk through, you leave your past behind and you look forward to the future. And that's why this idea of arch came about, and we came up with a design which is a traditional Indian doorway design. And then we went through the Arts Commission and the Parks Commission and a lot of public comments, and finally settled on a red granite arch to be built on the corner behind the library.
And I could add also that the idea of including the discrimination against the Japanese and the Chinese in Whatcom County happened as a result of discussion with people in the community, with people on the city council who asked questions and discussions in the Sikh community, and it was really welcomed by lots of people. So we decided that this arch shouldn't just represent what happened in 1907 to the Punjabi Sikhs, but also be a symbol about welcoming of immigrants.
We didn't want it to dwell on what happened. We wanted to dwell on that it should never happen again to anybody.
Paul, can you join me, please?
It is a great honor to get this award. This award is not for Satpal or Committee of Arch. It's for all the people who came here more than 100 years ago. And it is for their perseverance, their struggles, and for the people even today, because some things have not changed, even in 100 years. There are so many people to thank, but I'll keep it brief. Paul Engelsberg is in the audience. Paul, can you stand up, please? Tim Douglas, our past mayor, he's been very instrumental in our committee. And Paul started working with us in 2006, has done a lot of research actually we traced the family in Yuba City whose grandfather was in Bellingham at that time, was kicked out. And that family came to the ceremony when we installed the arch. There's another family, a Japanese family. If you see the young girl, she was 7 years old. She was sitting on Bellingham railway station with the tags on her hand and tags on her, all the luggage. And she lives in Tacoma. And we were able to trace her, and she came here. I would like to thank Whatcom Community Foundation, Maury Ingram, Mike Hams of RAM Construction, who donated all the construction cost for this, Chinese community, and Japanese community. This was a project not just for the Sikhs or just for certain immigrants. It was for all the people who suffered through that. And last not least, I would like to thank the Linden Sikh Temple. What can I say? I mean, these people were there right from year 2000, and when we found out about this, that we must do something, and they helped with not only financially, but being the backbone and the big sport to make this actually project come to fruition. And I'm thankful to my family. I'm thankful to my family who put up with me and my crazy ideas. Thank you.
It's my pleasure now to invite our final youth poet, Amelia O'Connell. Can you join us?
This is coming from the one who said that if anyone talked about what happened that day one more time, I would throw a computer printer through the window. This is coming from the one who jumped up and ran from my chair yesterday to investigate a loud noise downstairs. Once I was completely unaffected. Then one day it all hit me like a freight train. A student like me should pay attention in class and learn. A student like me should not have to spend class strategizing their plan of escape from the classroom in case of an emergency. They should not have to figure out how to throw a printer to break a window. To figure out how to run to the bookstore downtown while partially incapacitated. They should not have to leave class 10 times a day to make sure there is not a man with a gun in the hallway. I don't care if you think that this is their fault. It's not. I don't remember how many times I read or heard that it happened again. And every time I would seriously consider skipping school and walking into town instead. One day I heard that there was a shooting in my state. That day I had to babysit for the neighbors' kids. They caught me sitting by the window crying and asked me what was wrong, and I told them that my fish died. People ask me why I don't have opinions, and I say, yes, I do. I tell them that I have an opinion and a half. If only they knew how much I want to yell at the top of my lungs, that I want to jump onto that stage and preach with them, to say, listen up, lives are being lost and we need a change. But when I get anxious, my voice fades out and I can't talk. Sometimes I can't move. Sometimes I faint and fall onto the ground. But I still have hope for the future. I have hope that someday, not only will our laws change, but our mindset will change too. This is what our country needs. Not just the voices of congressmen or newscasters, but the voices of the people. People like me who have never spoken up before.
I appreciate those words. Thank you, Amelia, for putting your pen to paper and sharing that with us. There is honesty, wisdom, and hope living within the hearts of our next award recipients. I'm in awe of their courage and deeply appreciative of their thoughtful and inspiring action. As a community, we need to work together to solve our most challenging issues. And these young people are inviting all of us into a critical conversation. And I am so deeply honored to recognize the Students for Action group with a Peace Builder Youth Award. So please listen with me and let's learn more.
Another community is in disbelief, shocked by devastating violence, this time at that Florida high school on Valentine's Day.
This image, one that has become all too familiar. Students evacuating with their hands up.
The day after the shooting in Parkland, I decided to make a post on Instagram to just kind of suggest the idea of maybe having some kind of action to protest the shooting in like an active way that would empower youth. And so I made the post and I didn't really expect much of a response, but then a lot of people saw it, Mayhar saw it, and so I had about 30 people showing up at my house the next Monday to just get together and just talk about the issue, and then we made posters, decided that we wanted to go for it. So yeah, I guess, you could tell your point of view.
So I saw Maggie's Instagram post, and at that point I was really just kind of fed up with all of the shootings that had been happening, and with personal experience. When I was 11 years old, I was on my way to the Oak Creek Temple in Wisconsin with my family when I heard on the news that there was a shooting there, so the Parkland shooting really hit close to home for me. And so I decided, something needs to be done about this. So I went to Maggie's house and joined a bunch of other really awesome, just really great other students that were all there because of something, like some story that they had that brought them there. In about 72 hours, we organized a protest at City Hall, and we had no idea how big it was going to be. There were 2,000 people there, which was just insane. And there were some really amazing speakers, and they had amazing, powerful words to say.
And to make a safer, more united community, not just for us, but for our siblings and for our future kids.
And overall, the event was just a total success, and I think it really drove people to start doing something about what was going on in the schools. Yeah. We have an Instagram following of students that are taking actions with us as we inform them about them, attending events, that kind of thing. We're registering people to vote. We've registered, I think, over 100 people at the high schools, and then we've gone to the farmers market and registered. We went to the Linden Fair, and we spread the word about our organization.
And so we kind of got introduced into activism like that, and so we experienced like a big success off the bat. And then, as kind of time went on and we got back from the march in DC, we realized that it was kind of fading out of like public awareness, and we just realized that like it is really a long haul thing, and you just have to keep working like when the cameras and crowds go home. So I think the group that we have now really represents that.
One challenge that we've all had to face is finding time for our activism, as well as tackling day-to-day challenges like school and work. And it's pretty difficult sometimes, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it because the problems that are going on in the world are so much bigger than us, and it's hard to see that sometimes, but I think the work that we're doing is really, really important and totally vital in our community.
Maggie and Meher, join me up here, please. And other Students for Action as well. Come on up if you're here.
Did you want to say anything, Paige? Go for it. Okay, we want to thank everybody for this award tonight. We've been working so hard, and though after we came back from DC talking with our politicians, our group isn't as loud as it was before the protest, but we're making big progress as we are as individuals, and most of us are working on political campaigns, and it showed in the midterm elections that what we were doing is working. We're good. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Can we have a round of applause for all of our award recipients and youth poets tonight?